All right, Hawks fans, let's get this over with. First off, if there's any Cincinnati Bengal fans that come across this, congratulations on the win. The Seattle Seahawks have been on the other side of these types of ball games throughout the last few years, and kind of forgot what it's like to be on the other side. You know, during the year the Seahawks won this Super Bowl, we were down 20-3 at halftime against the Houston Texans, came back and won that game. That game was on the road, and then we were down 21-0 against Tampa Bay the same year at home, came back and won in overtime at home. And I remember how I felt. I remember how what it felt like, you know, to see the team persevere and do enough to get on top and come back, and I remember what it felt. But it really does stink being on the other side. So props to any Bengal fans who come out here. Congratulations on your 5-0 start, and good luck throughout the rest of the season. And the last, you've been 5-0 now 3 times in your history, including this year, and one of those years you went to the Super Bowl. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Okay, so, man, I'm not looking forward to this. You know, I've been, you know, trying to think of what to say after that collapse that happened in Cincinnati. And, you know, the more that I try to word it, and, you know, I've been trying to think of stuff that I'm going to say, you know, on here with, you know, without completely sounding down in the dumps and angry and frustrated, but you can't. I mean, you can't go on this, you know, can't leave that game without those emotions. I mean, it was a complete team collapse. It really was. You know, I know some people, it's on social media, that want to blame one guy, but, you know, they want to blame Russell Wilson for not making plays. So they want to blame, you know, a group of people, the Legion of Boom, the offensive line. Some people are pointing the finger at the Seahawks offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevell. And, you know, you look at what happened, you know, the Seahawks were up 17 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, or at one point in the second half, at one point, you know, in order for something like this to happen, I mean, you have to have a lot of things not go your way. And it's because of that. This is an entire team. You can't blame Darrell Bevell with the conservative play calling. You can't blame the offensive line for not stepping up at the ending. You can't blame the Legion of Boom for letting go another lead. You have to blame the entire team. You know, I mean, it doesn't happen every single week where a team gives up 20 unanswered points late in the second half and in overtime to lose a game. It's just, you can't point the finger. The thing that aggravates me the most is there's, as much as the silver lining hurts, there's a lot of positives to come out of this game. I was lucky enough to see the majority of this game. I saw the first half, a little bit of the second half before I started to make my way back to Seattle and, you know, get on one of my 2 airplane flights. And yeah, the offense got off to a slow start. They did score on their opening drive, which was good. But overall, the Seahawks in general got off to a slow start. But that's kind of what I expected. As I said before, I was expecting a defensive battle. I wasn't expecting a small shootout or a small come-from-behind victory. I shouldn't say small, but a come-from-behind victory from one of the teams. I was expecting a slugfest, and that's basically what it was in the first quarter. So, you know, the offense responded, you know, to the first touchdown by Cincinnati right away, which is a really good sign, really good thing. The Seahawks hadn't done that. The offensive line, at least the portions that I watched, yeah, they didn't look the best, but they definitely showed signs of improvements from the previous weeks. And how do I know that? And why do I say that? Is because when I watched the game, Russell Wilson, for the most part, had time to throw. I mean, there was one play where he just kind of scampered around and then eventually threw it away. And, you know, I can understand that he held onto the ball for that one play, you know, early in the first half. But outside of that, he had room to throw the ball, and he had time to throw the ball. Our running game, looked solid throughout. It was the first time, in my opinion, where you actually got the impression the Seahawks were running with the football with the running back instead of the quarterback, which was great. Thomas Rawls had a heck of a game. Seattle got its first rushing touchdown. During the game, they got the Legion of Boom had their first interception from Earl Thomas. And got to give props where credit is due. I like Jermaine Kearse, local boy, former Washington Husky. However, he has to be sometimes one of the most annoying receivers on this team because he has this nasty habit of making this acrobatic catch when there are 4 or 5 guys defending him, and then periodically he'll drop a ball when nobody's around him. But he was wide open in the end zone for his touchdown pass. Even he did well. You saw Richard Sherman before the collapse. You saw Richard Sherman make adjustments on whether it was A.J. Green or another Cincinnati wide receiver. You had, they threw the ball to him and he made a play. For the first time the entire season, they threw his direction and he made a play. And we are so close. This comeback that's how close we are to talking about how the Seahawks are 3-2. They're second in the division behind the Arizona Cardinals. They got up a game. They moved up a game from St. Louis. I would be wrong because I predicted the Seahawks to lose this game at the beginning of the week, and instead of being 3-2 like the Seattle Seahawks, I'm now 4-1. I've gotten one game wrong thus far, and we could be talking about all of these positive things that actually happened outside of the collapse. But because of the collapse, we have to have different conversations, and that's what eats me. That's what bothers me from this 17-point lead vanishing at the end of the fourth quarter and going into overtime. Cincinnati it does have a very, very good high-profile offense, as I said, and normally, despite I did think the Seahawks were going to win due to statistics that I mentioned before in my preview video, but normally defense stands up and wins games and leads to championships. And we, not to quote Dennis Green, but the Legion of Boom, and the entire Seattle Seahawks, defensive, offensive, coaching, they let the Bengals off the hook. And because of that, the Bengals are now 5-0, and the Seahawks are now 2-3, heading into week 6 against the Carolina Panthers, which is really unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate that all this positive things that I just listed just gone away. Just the silver lining just takes it all. Seahawks lost despite all of these positive things that happen. I usually go over stats, but I'm not going to. I'm going to address some things that are coming up. We learned a couple of things about the Seattle Seahawks. The first thing that we learned is that, unfortunately, as of this point in this particular season, if the Seahawks get into overtime, they will lose. This is the second overtime game that they have played, and they have choked in both times. They've had the opportunity to march down the field and at least put points up on the board. They failed with their one possession in St. Louis. They failed on their 2 possessions against Cincinnati. And now since Cincinnati is, like I said, still trying to prove himself, but is showing that they are a playoff team and they lead the AFC North, they're here and St. Louis is still there. It doesn't matter where we're playing or who we're playing. If the Seahawks go into overtime, they will lose. Because the Rams, it doesn't matter, what level you're on. The Rams are still trying to be consistent, and they have their problems. We lost to them, and then you got Cincinnati, who's just riding high right now. So if the Seahawks are going to win football games, unfortunately, they're going to have to do it in regulation. Because right now the extra period is killing them. So that's the first thing. The second thing that is also concerning moving forward is the Seahawks have yet to win on the road. Now, I don't know what the deal is with the NFL. Everybody talks about the importance of winning on the road. And it's important to win on the road in any sport. But it is so difficult to win on the road in the NFL. I don't know if it's because, of the hype that goes into a game. I don't know if it's because everybody has their own, home field advantage. Like, again, the Packers had the Cheeseheads. the Seahawks have the 12s. I don't know if this is true, but Cincinnati has their jungle. I guess that's, Cleveland's got the dog pound. I don't know what it is, but it is very difficult to win on the road. That being said, there is a saying in the NFL that talks about going to the playoffs. And that saying goes, win all your home games, which is 8, and go 500 on the road. So 4-4. So 8 plus 4, that's 12 wins. 12 wins and 4 losses if you would like to go to the playoffs. And that is an ideal situation. But I'm going to say, the Seahawks really are digging themselves in a hole in that regard because, yes, we're undefeated at home. We're 2-0 at home, and we're 0-3 on the road. So in order for us to go 500, at least 500, the Seahawks are going to have to win 4 of their remaining 5 road games, which is very difficult. They've put themselves in a huge hole in regards to that. Because it's not going to get easy. The schedule, like I said in the previous video, it's getting harder. And it's not going to get any easier with Carolina coming to town and then a short week against a division rival on the road. I do think the Seahawks can beat the Santa Clara 49ers, but, if they lose that game at this point, I'm not going to be surprised. I really am not, because they haven't shown that they can put together a game plan from start to finish to win on the road. Another concern that's moving forward, another concern that I have moving forward is that this is starting to be talked about. The defensive unit and the Seattle Seahawks are starting to give away games. If you go even to last year, back in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, the last time the Seattle Seahawks held a lead, held a lead in check in terms of a close game, so not a blowout like the blowout we had against the Chicago Bears, you got to go back to the divisional round against the Carolina Panthers. That was last year in the playoffs. After that, we came back against Green Bay, blew the lead, won the game in overtime. We blew a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl. We blew a touchdown lead in St. Louis. We had a 1-point lead going into the fourth quarter against Green Bay, which I wasn't too concerned about because I didn't have the Seahawks winning that game anyway. But we blew that game, and we blew this one. That also being said, if Cam Chancellor does not make right now the play of the season and force a fumble out of Calvin Johnson's hands against Detroit, and the referees forget a rule that nobody remembers, the Seahawks arguably could be considered a 1-4 football team at this point. And if we were 1-4, we'd be having issues like the Santa Clara 49ers. Well, they're 1-4, and they've lost 4 straight. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And they're getting blown out. We're not. At least we're in the games. So, there's that concern. The other concern is this. I still have not pushed the panic button. The panic button was put away. We won 2 straight home games. We were 2-2. We dug out a 2-hole deficit, an 0-2 deficit. And granted, I did have the Hawks losing this game, but they had an opportunity to completely, cover up that hole that they made at the beginning of the season with losing their first 2 games and being over 500. Right now, the Seattle Seahawks are 2-3. They have 2 more games before they hit their bye week, which is week 8. So they got a good team playing at home, thank goodness, with the Carolina Panthers, and they have a poor team in the Santa Clara 49ers on the road. The Seahawks, if they want to have a shot at making the playoffs, they have to go at least 1-1 in these next 2 games. Preferably 2-0. Because I'm going to tell you, if they go 2-0 in these next 2 games, being 4-3 looks a lot better going into the bye week and then following a week against Dallas, who I know is struggling. However, the Seattle Seahawks don't play well in Dallas. I don't even remember the last time that we won in Dallas. Tony Romo or not with Tony Romo. I don't remember the last time the Seahawks won in Dallas. I would have to look it up. So, that's a tough game right there. And if we go into that game 4-3, that's the midway point of the season, where we're just trying to fight to get to 500 and still have the remaining 8 games to go on a run. But right now, the next 2 games arguably could be considered must-win situations. We have to beat Carolina and Santa Clara to get some confidence to going into Dallas. And I know that some people say, well, the Dallas Cowboys are having issues. I mean, Tony Romo's not going to even play that game. I get that. But the thing is, you also got to remember, it's a road game. The Seahawks have yet to win a game on the road. And, again, I don't remember the last time they played Dallas. Plus, they're going to have a bye week. So if they lose to the Santa Clara 49ers, they're going to be sitting on that loss for 2 weeks. So there are lots of concerns. I have not pushed the panic button, but I will if we go 3-4 heading into the bye week. And I will be very concerned. Because all of a sudden, right now, we still have time. There is still time to turn around this season. But if we don't start, to quote my friend Carl, if we don't put up or shut up, it's going to be a long second half. It's going to be a very, very long second half. And the schedule is just going to keep getting harder and harder and harder and harder. And we need to start making adjustments now. Now, the good thing is, and I'll end with the positive thing, the good thing is the Seahawks historically, under Pete Carroll, are a second half team, which is very good. They almost made the playoffs. I mean, yes, it was Tavares Jackson year, but they were in the playoff hunt until week 16 with Tavares Jackson. We saw what happened last year when the Seahawks started out 3-3, ended up losing on one play in the Super Bowl. You look at the year before we won the Super Bowl, we got red hot at the ending, and if it hadn't been for giving up two big passes, that led to a game-winning field goal, we could have been hosted by Santa Clara in the NFC Championship game. So there is still room for hope. But if we do not win, go at least 1-1 in these next two games, if not 2-0, it's going to be a difficult second half. It's going to be an incredibly difficult second half because of what happened. And I bring this up because of what happened in Cincinnati. I'm really hoping that this loss doesn't derail our season. I really hope. So we're a second half team. I'm not panicking. We're one game under 500. We got the Panthers coming to Seattle. Historically, the Seattle Seahawks have Carolina's number in the last couple of years. There's still time. But again, to quote my friend Carl, now is the time to put up or shut up and make a play and get a couple wins under the belt before they head into their bye week. So that's, unfortunately, I know it sounds angry, but that's the way I feel, and that's the way how I look at it after losing to Cincinnati like the way we did. So, and again, so frustrating. There's so many positive things that we could talk about if the Seahawks won that game. So many positive things. And again, we're having this discussion. So that is my recap of the Cincinnati Seattle Seahawks games. Moving on to Carolina. So we're going to end this with a NFL scoreboard for you. On Thursday, the Indianapolis Colts took down the Houston Texans 27-20. I want to give a shout out to former Seattle Seahawks quarterback Matt Hasselbeck. He played amazing in that game. I was able to see that game, and it was nice to see Matt get an opportunity to get back on the field. 40 years old. How about that? He's 40 years old. He's still playing in the NFL. So nice to see Matt Hasselbeck get the win for stepping in for Andrew Luck. All right, moving on to Sunday's games. We have the Chicago Bears. This was interesting because it looked like Kansas City was going to run away with it. They too come back. The Chicago Bears score 15 unanswered points in the second half to take down the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City 18-17. The Atlanta Falcons rally to stay unbeaten at 5-0 at this point, 25-19 after hosting the Washington Redskins. Excuse me. Tampa Bay upsets the Jacksonville Jaguars in a battle for Florida, 38-31. The Eagles all over the New Orleans Saints. Wow, are they struggling even with Drew Brees? The Eagles 39-17. The Cleveland Browns. Gotta give credit to the Cleveland Browns for taking down the former Cleveland Browns, aka the Baltimore Ravens, in Baltimore, 33-30. The Green Bay Packers do help the Seattle Seahawks out in the sense that they took down a division rival, so that's good. They take down the St. Louis Rams 24-10. It was the Bills over the Titans in Nashville. 14-13. The Cardinals get back in the winning column. They are now 4-1 after a 42-17 victory over the Detroit Lions. Detroit right now is 0-5. The New England Patriots crush the Dallas Cowboys 30-6 in Dallas. The Denver Broncos hang on to beat the Oakland Raiders 16-10. In the Sunday night game, the New York Giants sneak by the Santa Clara 49ers 30-27, and then tonight, Monday Night Football, the Pittsburgh Steelers get over the 500 mark. They're now 3-2 as they defeat the San Diego Chargers 24-20. So that'll do it. I'm done with the Cincinnati game at this point. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. I'm done with the Cincinnati game. So coming up next will be the preview for the Carolina Hurricanes. Why do I always say Carolina Hurricanes? Maybe it's just because it rolls off the tongue better. I don't know. And I know that I enjoy the NHL. But we have the Seahawks and the Carolina Panthers coming up on Sunday in Seattle at CenturyLink Field. That video will be coming up as soon as possible. So again, thanks very much for watching. Again, the Seattle Seahawks fall to the Cincinnati Bengals 27-24 in overtime. Hawks are now 0-2 in overtime games. We'll talk to you later, and go Hawks.